Hello and welcome to the Balanced Business Dad Podcast. This podcast is just one part of the Balanced Business Dad movement. This movement provides a platform of the important pillars of life while building this council of dads to support each other as we work to balance our lives. The 6 pillars of life that we strive to balance are our faith, our health, our marriage, fatherhood, brotherhood, and our business. We are here to build a council of dads to celebrate wins and as well as to share the challenges of being a husband and a father, and all the while working to keep our pillars in balance. The goal of the Balanced Business Dad movement is for dads to be better in all things, balanced, because everyone in our lives deserves it.
Hey, what's going on, dads? It's Dustin here, one of the co-founders of the Balanced Business Dad, and it's with me always, my partner, my friend, my much senior, Mr. RJ Campbell. RJ, how are we doing today?
We're doing great, gentlemen. Hope everybody's doing well.
Yeah, and Happy New Year, guys. This is going to be the first recording we've done in 2023, and we are super excited about how this year is going to go. The Balanced Business Dad has a lot in the works, and we are very excited to share it with you. But that is not why we're here today. Today, we are interviewing a very special guest out of Ohio, Mr. Adam Liette. I'm going to mispronounce it already, and I just practiced it. So, Adam, you tell me your last name. How's that?
Adam Liette.
Adam Liette. Man, I was trying to read the spelling and it really messed me up, so I apologize. But Mr. Liette, yes. Adam, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for taking the time today to, talk with the other dads out there, the other husbands, the other business owners about your story, because it sounds like it's a pretty unique story on how you got to where you are today. So let's first just start. Who is the Adam today, and what are you doing? What are you up to?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, guys. This is always fun. Who is Adam Liette? Gosh, that's a good question. Adam Liette is an operations expert. I run a company called Smooth Operations, and what I do is I help entrepreneurs on that growth scale where they're starting to see real momentum in their business, starting to reach that uncomfortable phase where you're doing everything by yourself and you're just always busy, always stressed out. Well, my friend, you need systems around you. You need people around you. It makes everything better. It makes the company grow faster. It makes life just so much more enjoyable. So I help entrepreneurs create those operating systems, create those structures around themselves so they can not only have a more balanced life, but ultimately be more productive, be more successful, and grow their business.
Yeah, love that. And how long have you been doing that?
I've been doing this business for about 4 months full time. It's been in the idea stage for about 1.5 years, 2 years. I was just waiting for that right push off the cliff into entrepreneurship that so many of us have waited on. And when we finally experience it, it's like a roller coaster ride once you go down that hill, for sure.
Yeah. And I love how you said that cliff, right? Because how many of us out there that when we did step into entrepreneurship, and some people did it on accident, some people did it on purpose, but it does feel like a cliff, a very long cliff that a lot of times you can't see the bottom, yet you feel like you're heading for the bottom very quickly, right? So I love that you called it that way. That was great. So the business has been been out there for, like you said, 4 months. Yet how did you get to where, hey, I'm going to help people in the operations part? Because I'm sure that's something that you've had a lot of experience in to start this business. So tell us about that.
Yeah, so I joined the Army immediately after high school, or not high school, college. Gosh, and I joined initially as a bandsman. The United States Army has a number of musicians in the band, so I started as a bandsman, did that for about 5 years, and then I drank all the Army Kool-Aid all at once and got recruited into special operations and went down that rabbit hole of all the training, language training, all high speed jumping out of planes, all sorts of that cool stuff, and ended up serving in that capacity for about 8 years, serving overseas, did 6 tours total, learned a ton about running highly complex missions, running teams, running clandestine operations, like all the things you see in the movies. We did all of it. And then a funny thing happened. I was on a normal parachute jump, just a regular Thursday. We would parachute about once a month, once every
Hold on a
quarter.
minute. I have to interject. He's on a parachute jump, a regular Thursday.
A Thursday. Yeah. No big deal.
Yeah, no big deal. I mean, for real. It's like, oh, what are you doing today? Jumping out of a plane? Come on. Normal day. And it was a normal day. I jumped out of the plane. Everything was fine. Normal exit, normal canopy open. I'm drifting to the ground. Everything looks perfect. And I hit the ground and I feel a pop, a snap. And it was my right ankle decide to finally give out on me. All those years of abuse finally paid their due. And I ended up getting surgery 2 days later for a triple break in my right ankle, which put me on my back for several months, which for people like us, we don't sit down very well. We don't stop. So what did I do when I sat down? When I finally had to rest, I started reading. I started looking online. I started researching. And I discovered this guy named Russell Brunson and his new book, .com Secrets. I read it. And then I read it again. Then I read it again. And I knew what I wanted to do when I had to grow up and leave the Army. I knew I wanted to get into internet marketing. I knew that's what the next step for me was, but I wasn't patient to start. So I started, I still had a year left in the Army. I was still operational, and I started looking to build my portfolio out. And so what did I do? I made a profile on Upwork and started looking for gigs. That led me ultimately to getting hired by this music education company out of England called Musical U. They hired me as a part-time social media manager, literally the guy just posting stuff to Facebook. I think I was making $12 an hour, but it wasn't about the money because I was still full-time Army. I was just getting experience. That led to a full-time job. As I was leaving the military, the founder of that company said, we want you full-time. Don't get a real job. Come work for me instead. I became the first operations manager for that company, and over the next 4 years grew us from right around $350,000 a year, $400,000 give or take, up to several $1 million a year in recurring revenue. Won the 2 Comma Club, built our membership up to 35,000 members, and the team up to 8 full-time and 12 contractors. And I became the director of operations. I had to create all the operating systems that actually ran that company, because they didn't exist. I was the first person in that role. And that whole experience of building a company from scratch, from the ground up, seeing it get to that level, I mean, that's really where it all came from. It's from just having my nose to the grindstone, figuring out how to do that for several years, trying to build that company into what it is today.
Wow. That's quite a story. My favorite part is bandsman goes special operations, because that happens a lot, I'm assuming. No, I'm not well versed in the military yet. That's not what I expect most people in band in the military goes. I'm assuming that's a little bit of a stretch. And you were recruited from the band to do this.
Yeah. I mean, they're recruiting the recruiters for those kind of positions. They're looking at your physical fitness scores and your test scores. Do you test high enough to get into the job, or your physical fitness test high enough? That being said, Dustin, when you go through the selection process for a role like that, you have a board at the end where you have to approach a sergeant major and justify your existence on Earth, and why you should be selected. And I'll never forget what this guy said to me. Several curse words. And band, bleeping band, what am I going to do with the band guy? And all through selection, they have been telling us that special operations was an art. And so I repeated that to him. It's like, well, all month long, you guys have been telling us that special operations is an art form. And he looked all smug. You darn right it is. I'm like, well, I'm an artist.
I like it.
Wow.
And he kicked me out of the board. But he ultimately selected me. He just realized he had egg on his face, and sergeant majors don't take that well. But
awesome.
I
love that. So when did the family man Adam show up? Was it after the military, while you were building this company? Was, your spouse and your kids a part of that journey through the military? When did that happen?
It was from the very beginning. I'm very fortunate that I met the love of my life at the age of 15, and we started dating then. So by the time I graduated college, had joined the Army. So I joined the Army. I was in my initial training, and they gave me the heads up like, hey, by the way, you're going to Afghanistan as soon as you get out of training. So get your affairs in order. So we had to bump up our wedding like 14 months so we could get married. Wow. And so my wife and I got married. We were together for 3 weeks, and I went down to Fort Bragg and went straight to Afghanistan. So yeah, we did the whole, like, you know how people say like, oh, move in before you get married, live together. Like, we got married and still didn't live together. So then by the time I came home, the kids came soon after. So the kids were along for this entire ride, all those years in special ops, all the years growing the business. The kids have been along for every bit of it.
Wow. So talk about, you know, the balance needed to do that, right? In both positions, because when you're building a company, there's a ton of work and everything involved in that, but also while you're, you know, in the military on special assignments, the balance. I mean, because I'm assuming there's so many times that you were away from your family for so long. How did you guys make it through that? What tips and tricks did you guys input into your marriage, into being a father, to make sure that worked on the other side?
There was one trick that we had, which I credit a lot for, and it was the idea of a sacred hour, a time where we both had on our calendars, had set aside. And especially when I was overseas, when I would be either 12 hours off or 8 hours off or 14 hours off from Eastern Standard Time, it was my job to meet their time. So when were the kids available? When was my wife available? So we could jump on the phone together and take that time together. If that meant I was up at 3 o'clock in the morning, it meant I was up at 3 o'clock in the morning, because that's what time they could be available for me. Right. It wasn't up for them to change their lives. It was up for me to adapt to what they needed. So we did that for years, where I would get up at obscene hours in the morning, jump on the phone, and we would have that time together. It got infinitely easier once we had smartphones and, Skype was actually working. Parts of Afghanistan, we couldn't use Skype. We could use voice, but definitely not video, 8 kilobytes per second, if we can imagine that. I mean, that was our upload speed back in the day. So a lot of time on the phone, a lot of time just making sure we put that time away for each other, and paid dividends. I mean, I was still involved in my kid's life. I was still hearing about what happened at school, what happened at daycare, what happened, the funny story about the dumb thing the dog did. You know, I stayed involved with it, even when on the other side of the planet.
Wow, that's amazing. And Dads, I think there's a lesson learned in that, right? Because even if you're not on the other side of the world, can you be purposeful and put that on your calendar now, where you're making sure that there's that special time while everything else is going on in our life, but can you make sure that there's that special time that you're focused on your spouse, or you're focused on your kids, or you're focused even on your health? You know, we talk about the pillars. And what I heard there is that you're very purposeful in making sure that the important things of your life were scheduled out. I love that. Absolutely love that.
I live by my calendar. And like you said, personal health time, that's on the calendar. Time with the wife, that's on the calendar. Time with the whole family, it's on the calendar. And I block everything else out around that and schedule around those things. But those things get scheduled first.
Nice. Love that. And so true, Dads. That is the lesson. If you take anything from this call that I want everybody to know here, schedule the important things, right? Schedule the important things to make sure it's working for you, because it really does. So I love that. All right. So moving on with this incredible story, the whole band thing to the special operations has got me, because that is, I'm loving every minute of that. Right. Yet, all right. So you get out of the military, and now you go work for this company that hired you full-time from Upwork, right? Which, so now you're working for a company on the other side of the world. So I'm assuming that's a lot of at home by yourself working, because, well, they're on the other side of the world.
Yeah, it was a remote position. So, I mean, I was working remote already before it was cool, before COVID.
Right.
So, yeah, I went from being gone all the time to being home all the time, which honestly was this weird thing where, like, after 8 months of it, my wife looks at me and goes, "You're still here. This feels weird."
Yeah.
Like, I'm used to you leaving again by now. And the secret was, she always had like special projects she would wait for me to leave to go work on. it was like her way of coping with it. She'd like have this thing she wanted to do, but she knew it would drive me absolutely crazy. So she's like, I just need you to like not be here for a couple of days so I can do my project and feel better about life. And I was like, well, okay, that's a method.
Yeah. So one of the other things that I found so incredibly inspiring is you read a book and it changed your life, right? It's, and we've said that there's books in my life that has truly been a transitioning moment in my life for me to become an entrepreneur and things like that. But one book by Russell Brunson, I mean, you found a path and you went down it and you've stuck to it even to this day. So tell us, what did that book say to you? What made you say, yes, this is what I want to do, and then go out and do it?
That's a great question. The good thing about the military is that it's highly structured.
Mm-hmm.
The bad thing about the military is that it's highly structured. So for me to do anything in my job required formality, paperwork, permissions, staffing approval, meetings, bureaucracy.
Right.
And what I read from Russell was, I had an idea, I implemented it, and there we went. And there was something about that freedom. Like the idea, because I got an MBA along the way thinking I'm going to go corporate, Fortune 500 when I get out of the Army, right? Wear a suit every day. Funny. But I knew what I was going to walk into. I was going to walk into more bureaucracy, more permission. Right. I don't want to ask permission anymore because my ideas are good enough and I just want to roll. So it just opened this idea, this world of, I can just do what I know is right and it's going to work out, or it's not. In either way, we learn things by failing too. A failure is a win in some ways.
Absolutely.
And it fired me up and just made me see the possibilities.
Yeah. Man, I love that. That is huge. And then, so how long were you with the music company, and what were you doing there? You mentioned memberships and you mentioned, recurring revenue. So what exactly were you doing there being the director of operations?
Yeah, I mean, I wore about every hat there was to wear in that company over my time in the company, everything from customer service to marketing to Facebook ads to eventual team management. The company itself is a very mature company where they have a monthly membership. They have standalone courses. They have a high ticket offer. They have apps. I mean, it's really a full-fledged company.
Right.
Really, by the end of it, I was managing the trains. I was working with the team to make sure they had the resources they needed to do their job. They had the support they needed from all the various actors in our community. And I did a lot of work outside of the company, building out relationships, affiliate partnership relationships, really looking forward to that next stage. I almost entirely removed myself from the day-to-day of the company and instead was focused on a lot of future operations.
Nice. Love it. Love it. That's awesome.
It's music education courses. So for the adult music learner that wants to learn guitar or piano or saxophone, this company, they don't teach the instrumental lessons, but what they teach is what we call the inner skills of music learning. So my bachelor's degree was in music. So I've been a classical musician for most of my life. There's a lot of things about music in terms of what we're developing in here and in our ears. And when we develop our ears, when we develop our understanding of music, there's a reason I can play 8 instruments off the top of my head, because I know music. And it's less about instruments, but more about understanding music as a concept.
Makes sense. I love it.
I'm classically trained in trumpet and was an ad hoc self-trained guitar player.
Awesome.
Which was funny because I played classical all day at school, then went to the clubs and played heavy metal at night. Go figure. It works.
There you go.
I mean, I met my wife because of it. Yeah, it worked.
Makes complete sense now. What we do, right? Right. I love it. So then, you left you left the music company to do this own thing to help other businesses and other entrepreneurial scale and operate at full potential. Tell us about that transition and kind of how you help these companies now.
Yeah. The transition was really, I had been planning it for some time. And so I was deliberately hiring and training up what would my eventual replacement would be. Because there's one thing about, I mean, if the military gave me one thing, it's a high sense of loyalty, a high sense of completeness. And I'm not physically capable of just walking away from something. I have to make sure it's going to be taken care of. So I had a replacement ready to go who stepped into my role as director of operations and didn't miss a beat. She incredible hire, and I saw it from day one. I'm like, you're going to be good. And now she's running the company. It's fantastic to see. I'm so happy for her. With the companies I work with, we come in and we take the company for what it is now. Like, let's take stock of what your current operations are, what your current staffing is. Let's start to map it out. Let's start to get a sense of formality into your business. Let's look at your organizational chart, your organizational structure. What kind of processes do you have in the company? What kind of metrics are you currently measuring? What are the known knowns? Once we do that, we can start to formulate the next steps. Ultimately, my number one goal for all of my clients is to have a solid operating second in command. That second in command is so critical for the growth of the company. And if we can get that second in command really operating at a high level, man, everything else takes care of itself when you can really have someone at that high level in that second seat.
So true. Couldn't agree more with that. Love that. And is this you teach them courses, or you walk alongside them, one-on-one coaching? How does that organization work? Or is
primarily
there several of them?
Yeah, it's both. There's group coaching. There's also one-to-one coaching that I do with my clients. That being said, like the physical, how to do this, how to do that, how to hire people, I've pre-recorded all of that content. So my students get access to a whole library of content that I've recorded to walk them through the actual how-tos. And then when we're on a coaching call, it's more about, okay, what are you experiencing now? What are the pain points? What are the pressure points? What's keeping you up at night? What's causing you pressure in the business? Let's try to relieve that pressure. And 99 times out of 100, we can do it through systems. We can do it through, let's take a step back and just look at the process of what we're doing. And more than likely, there's something that's causing that disruption, something that's causing that friction. Let's solve the friction and let the rest go. And it's amazing what happens when people can let go of that and just move ahead.
Yeah. No, I love that. Now, let me ask you, while you're building this out, I'm assuming you're not taking any more people on Upwork?
No, the Upwork.
Had to ask.
Yeah. I haven't checked that account in some time. It'd be interesting to see what it says.
Yeah, had to ask, just in case for my own purpose, right? No, that's awesome. I mean, you have such an incredible story, and now what I love is you're taking everything that you've learned along the way, along this journey, right, and giving it back to other people that haven't learned it yet, right? That's what I think is so cool. One of the things that, because I'm a follower of Russell Brunson as well, but one of the things he said, is you coach yourself 5 years ago. Right. That's who you coach. Right. And I thought that was one of the most powerful things that I've learned, because I coach people too. I'm an executive coach, and it's so true. It's the knowledge and the mistakes we've learned through and we've failed. Now we just get to give it back so people can accelerate faster than what we did. And it sounds like you're doing that, and it's awesome. So with all that being said, we focus on the pillars of life that we call, and we try to keep these balanced, which we kind of mentioned that a little bit to you, but I would love some tips and tricks on how you operate and what systems you can put in place, or what you've put in place to do that. And the pillars that we talk about are faith, health, marriage, fatherhood, brotherhood, and then our career, in that order, or your business. So would love to hear, tell some of the dads out there a couple tips or tricks or systems that you think they could implement in their life. I love that, keeping everything scheduled. I love that one. What else you got for them? They could walk away with some good notes and something they can implement in this.
Absolutely. So if I know one thing about the entrepreneurial personality type, is we are a creature of habit. We're a creature of routine. So I have tried very deliberately to incorporate many of these things into my routines. Now that you listen them down, I'm like, yeah, I'm doing a lot of those. Holy cow. Funny how that works. And I would be lying if I said I was always doing it that way. There's been a lot of starts and stops along the way, but my gosh, You fall off the bike, you get back on it again.
Absolutely.
So health and faith come first thing in the morning. I wake up at a deliberate time. For me, it's 4 a.m. Don't think you got to wake up at 4. I'm a military guy. That's what we do. I can't help it.
Sure.
If I don't set my alarm, I still wake up at 4. But I start my day with faith. I take some time in prayer every morning before I go to the gym. I'm a big fan of hyperhydration. So I don't just drink one jug of these a day. I'm holding a 40-ounce jug of water. I drink about 6. So I drink a ton of water because water is one of the absolute best things that we can drink just to fuel our body. It's better for me now than coffee. I never thought Adam Liette would be saying that he doesn't drink coffee first thing in the morning. Here I am.
That's funny.
Then it's off to the gym. But all of this is routine. I do it without thinking. When we implement those healthy routines into our life to feed those things, it's amazing what ends up happening.
Yeah.
Another great thing I started doing, and this was it's kind of my faith meets fatherhood.
Mm-hmm.
I live in a very small town, and we're Catholic.
Okay.
A big part of the Catholic faith is CCD, the religious education that our children receive.
Mm-hmm.
I volunteered to be a teacher for CCD, which many of us aren't teachers, but you don't really have to be to be a part of your children's religious education. Then you're getting both of these in one time. You're strengthening your faith and you're getting that time with your children. It's some of the most rewarding work that I do. And it's 1 hour a week. That's it. I go to religion class with my children and they see that dad is not only teaching them, but practicing the faith, being part of that. Just never ending reward. Couple that with the fact that Sunday is family day. And it starts with church. We go to church together. We worship together. I say that now, and it's probably going to change in a couple of years when they, teenagers, they're all crazy and they get jobs and do what teenagers do. But right now, we're all able to go together. And that leads into family day. That leads in the day where me and my wife get the chance to reset, to plan our week together, where we'll sit down, plan the meal plan together. One of us will go to the store while the other one is starting meal prep. Sunday allows us so many opportunities to set ourselves up for the week. And for my wife and I, it's a day where we spend a lot of our time together. Given that we're both entrepreneurs, it's kind of like the only time we get, especially with the kids at the age they are. But it's weird how intimacy, I think as the marriage progresses, I think we all watch too much stuff on TikTok or Instagram where we think intimacy has to be a candlelight dinner with a waterfall in the background and roses and stuff.
Right.
Intimacy can be something as simple as I'll chop the carrots, you cut the chicken. There's something intensely beautiful about a relationship that you're cooking together, you're preparing, you're nurturing your family together. And it's that you can make it romantic too in some ways. I might wait for the kids to, go by the side and, have a little fun by the stove. I'm just saying. Absolutely. There's moments in that moment in the kitchen where you can get even more intimate. And it's just so wonderful. And I'm kind of reflecting on this in real time about how beautiful the ordinary can be when we take the time to appreciate it and just acknowledgments and doing things together. I think even with the kids, I think the kids have this extraordinarily appreciation for the things that we don't think they'll appreciate. So like we took this elaborate trip this summer, and it's the trip I wanted to take since I knew I was going to be a father. I wanted to take my kids to Yellowstone because it's such a beautiful part of the country. So we drove all the way across, 24 hours in the car to get there. And I think like, what are my kids going to remember? They remember that funny thing dad did on the water slide at the hotel outside the Badlands. They remember dad feeding, Cheez-Its to little prairie dogs outside our cabin in Yellowstone.
Yeah.
Like we think they need this grand elaborate thing, and they remember the most inconsequential things that we won't even think they remember. And if you look back to your own childhood and your own experiences with your father, what do you really remember? It's all the little silly things. I remember top of my head, we went on this big trip out East Coast, so up through Maine, up stayed on a cabin right on the coast, ate lobster every night. And what do I remember? We went to a restaurant and my dad on a dare took a spoonful of horseradish at a crab restaurant and ate it. And he got so red and started sweating from the head. And we thought it was the funniest thing ever. When we talk about that trip now as adults with our parents, that's the first thing that comes up is when dad ate the horseradish.
Right.
It's crazy how these things come back to us. I have two more, I guess. I have brotherhood and career yet. Brotherhood, I would say if there's one area where I really need to level up, it's with brotherhood. It's so many competing interests. As we record this, we're getting ready to enter playoff season. So the one thing my friends and I do have is a solid playoff watching tradition where we will watch the playoffs together, even if my team's not in it because I'm a Browns fan and we're never in it. And career, my career builds around everything else. It might mean I'm up at 11 o'clock at night working on a slide deck for a presentation tomorrow. It might mean I'm up at 4 a.m. Career has this wonderful way of molding into our lives and without taking it over if we make that purposeful time. I won't say I'm perfect on it because I've had those marathon days too. Here's the one thing that we can always do with our career, even if you have one of those jobs that will require those super long days from you. Like what I've been doing, especially when launching my own company, I have the days where I need to lean into it and I need to pull an 18-hour day. It's going to be what it's going to be. But if we leverage our time there and put all into it there, and then we free up our time on another day, the kids understand.
Yep.
And they understand what we're building. And my kids, because they know what dad's building, what dad's trying to do, honestly, they brag about it. They're so proud of it. Your kids are really proud of you is what I found. If we tell them what we're doing, include them in on the story.
100%. Wow, that is great. Those were so many tips and tricks there, but I think what RJ said is it's for all of us to remember there that how beautiful is the ordinary. That's going to be one that I'm taking with me. So I appreciate that. This was excellent. Your journey is so inspiring. So I just love how you're giving back. I love that, band turned special ops. That's awesome. That is really cool. Adam, tell people how they can find you or how we can help you right now.
Sure. So the best place to find me is on my own podcast. It's called the Smooth Operator Podcast. Find it on all the major platforms. You can find me at my website at adamliette.com. Audio, so I should probably spell it ADAMLIETTE. And I have various resources available there for you. And please do get in touch. And any way I can help with your own business, I'm more than happy to.
I love it. All right, awesome, guys. Well, RJ's going to close us out, but we can keep this conversation going. A couple things I want to be on the lookout for the Dad Up retreat that we are having in early May. So, Adam, what I didn't mention is I bought a campground in March. So I own 65 acres by the Black River in Missouri. But besides as in a campground, we also do business retreats and dad retreats there. This will be our second one, and it was an amazing experience. 30 dads down there, bonding over these pillars and stuff like that. So be on the lookout for that. Adam, we'd love to have you. It would be a little bit of a drive for you, but it'd be worth it. As well as, you can carry this conversation on at the Balanced Business Dad, which is a public Facebook group where we carry on these conversations and other conversations. You mentioned brotherhood. What I found to my surprise is brotherhood is lacking for a lot of other dads out there. I am extremely blessed that I have two best friends that I've had since third grade. I thought everyone was like that. And I realized they're not. So brotherhood is so important in our lives. So that's one of the reasons that we started this group, as well as the Dad Up Council, which you can find more information on that. That's what I wanted to say. So be on the lookout for that, guys. Adam, this was an amazing conversation. RJ, close us out.
Friends, thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Balanced Business Dad podcast. All that we ask from you is that you go to your favorite podcast outlet and give this podcast a review and a rating. That helps us get the podcast out so that more dads like you can find it and hear these fantastic conversations we have with people like Adam. So thanks again for listening, and we look forward to talking to you again.